Happy for me to make a start?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. So I'd just like to say welcome everybody. Hello, and thank you for attending. This is the first Shiver webinar of the season as we start a new academic year. So my name is Michaela Rogers and I'm co-lead for Shiver, which is the Sheffield Interpersonal Violence and Abuse Research Network. And I'm delighted that this is the first event of this academic year because it's going to be a really packed hour and a half, but really interesting and engaging. So I'm really pleased to see Claire and colleagues here. As we move through the session, as I said, please do feel free to use the chat box. We've got some time planned at the end for questions and a bit of a discussion, but we might run out of time. So if there is anything, please do put things in the chat box. And I can see someone's from North Yorkshire. I drove from North Yorkshire in torrential rain this morning. So yeah, I'm glad you're up there and not out on the horrible roads. So without further ado, I'm going to pass on to Claire, who's going to introduce this session.
Okay. Can everybody see that? Okay. Okay, brilliant. So, yeah, so this session is part of Shiva and also part of the Arts for the Future Festival. And I'm just going to explain a little bit about so this is the program. So obviously we've got welcome and introductions, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the research that I did, not very much. And then we're going to screen the film. And what we found is it's better if we give you the link and you go and watch the film and then you come back. Because if I screen it within Zoom, it depends on your internet. It might not work properly. And Chris, the filmmaker who is here, is very conscious that he wants his film to be shown at the best. And I want to support him with that. So we will give you the link to the film and then you will come back and we will carry on with the rest of the programme. And then Chris is going to talk about how we made the film and how he, in general, turns research into film. And then we're going to have the International Centre for Missing and Exploited Children. Zoe is going to talk for them. And then we've got Smile of the Child, and PE is going to speak with her colleague. And then we've got Talk Hong Kong with Tora, who's going to explain about their work. So we're going to hear about some really, really great work, and I can't wait. So let's get on with it. So yeah, so my name's Claire Cunnington, and I work at the University of Sheffield. And this research came out of my PhD, which looked at adults recovering from childhood sexual abuse. Okay, so my research was funded by the Wellcome Trust. And what inspired me, so as somebody who had experienced childhood sexual abuse, what I thought was a real gap in the literature in research was that there's a lot of research, a lot of focus on the impact of childhood sexual abuse. And I think for someone who's experienced it, you know what the impact is because you're experiencing it, you're living it. And what I was interested in is what have people learned? So people who've experienced it over their lifetimes, what have they learned about recovery? So my question was, what helps and hinders recovery? So rather than what's so awful about it, which obviously is true, and there does need to be research into that, what I wanted to research is what helps and hinders you actually recovering. And obviously that's not something with an end date, it's something that goes on throughout your lifetime, but there are things that help and things that hinder. So I did a survey where I had 140 responses, and then I did interviews as well. Then there were 21 interviews. And this diagram just shows the sort of focus, really. Instead of focusing on illness, low well-being and sadness, I wanted to focus on health, higher well-being and happiness. What makes you happy, basically? Okay, so what helps? So just over a quarter of the survey respondents said relationships was the most important factor. So it leads to more confidence, emotional expression and healing. And 61 people really valued healthcare and said that that was the most important factor for them. And 107 people said talking therapies were a positive influence on recovery. So therapy is really, really vital, but also close relationships, important supportive relationships. And what else? So the other thing that people said really helped was they talked about feeling disconnected from their body, that they lived in their mind and that their body was something separate. And this can be caused by dissociation during sexual abuse. So recovery, part of recovery is reconnecting with your body. And people gave 92 examples of different types of exercise and movement that they found that really helped, and 168 examples of creativity. So this was anything. I mean, there was horse riding, slam poetry, dance, all sorts of different things. But anything that creates this state of flow. So a state where you're doing something that is rewarding, challenging, but possible and gives immediate feedback. So this was defined by Csikszentmihalyi. And basically, we all know the state of flow. It's when you look up and you can't believe how much time's gone by. You've been so absorbed by something. It's a really positive state. And what I found interesting about that is that that was something people found for themselves. They found ways of dealing with it through these different activities. So what hinders? The main thing that came out wasn't actually the the sort of physical and mental impacts of abuse. It was actually trouble over disclosure. So disclosure is trying to talk about it. This isn't a one-off event. This is something you have to do over and over again. And there's a real tension between an individual's desire just to talk about something that happened to them that was so important and so impactful, and the external sort of social pressure, just don't talk about it. And people really spoke about how that was so hard to navigate. So all in all, 99 survey respondents described 258 specific examples of poor responses to disclosure, or even them attempting to discuss childhood sexual abuse at all. And these were poor responses from family, from friends, from professionals, so many. So this was really highlighted to me as something that needed to be dealt with. So I've written an academic article with my PhD supervisor, and what we've done, and there's the QR code here is a link to the article if you want to go to that. And basically, we've used the idea of the techniques of neutralization, try and explain how people are, how are people silenced? And what we found in the examples that we looked at was three different main ways. One is denying that you're a victim at all. The second is minimizing the harm. It was just experimenting. It wasn't that bad, that sort of thing. And then third, appealing to loyalty. This will ruin the family if you talk about it, that sort of thing. So these are very common. We found, very common throughout people's examples. Okay, so this has been really quick, but I'm zipping through because we have so much to talk about. So really, what helps is good relationships, whether they're personal or professional, being heard, and finding things and doing things as often as possible that create that sense of flow. It's really good for your mental health and your physical health. And what hinders is being silenced, not being heard. So the next steps, I knew I wanted to do more about it. And then I was contacted by Chris Godwin from Inner Eye Productions about making a film. And that's why we're all here today. So that's just the references for, just some references about flow, and just some references about positive ways of looking at health. Salutogenic ways of looking at health. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, if everyone makes sure they're on mute, and then you can either go to this QR code here to watch the film, or I will also put it in the chat. Let's see. There we go. So if you want to watch it on your tablet or your phone, use the QR code. If you want to use it, watch it on the computer, then probably easier if you click on the link. And then I can't see a clock at all. So Michaela, can you tell me when we want people back? It's about half an hour.
Yep, so we're on 4. So we're going to resume the session. So I hope that you all managed to watch the fabulous film Flow, and that you didn't have any problems with the join links or the QR code. I'm sure you didn't. Hopefully we'll have a little bit of time at the end for some discussion, but I'm going to move swiftly on and give some time over to Chris, who's going to talk about turning research into film.
Well, thank you very much for that. So I suppose probably the best way to start is to talk about how this film came about. And I made a film back in 2016 or 2017 for the Department of Health over here in the UK. And this was a film to raise awareness of child sexual abuse across the UK. And it was felt that people who worked within the health sector in the UK had this privileged position, and to be able to talk to children and to be able to elicit a disclosure of child sexual abuse. And so we made a film which was then rolled out across the whole of the NHS, and is used now as a way of stimulating conversation around child sexual abuse, and how there are the opportunities for people who work in the health sector to be able to talk to people who have experienced child sexual abuse, and to hopefully allow them to disclose. So I'd made this film, and I then came across Claire's research, which I thought was really interesting. It felt like it was a kind of a development on the film that I'd already made. And so I approached Claire, and Claire and I had a chat about, whether there was a film to be made, and we really felt there was a film to be made. I mean, there's a film to be made to amplify the research of Claire, but also a film to really make a difference. And our real aim was for the film to be circulated and shared in the way it is, particularly amongst people who work in the health profession. And it's really heartening to know that very recently the Royal College of Nursing have endorsed the film, and it's now going to be formed part of their training program. So nurses throughout the country hopefully will be watching this film, and it will be really making a difference. So in terms of how we came about the story for this particular film, so fundamentally it all came from Claire's research. But then Claire pulled together a steering group of people with lived experience. And it was through those conversations that we had with people with lived experience that we started to kind of pull a story together. And when we're pulling a story together, we're looking for a number of things. We're looking for insights on which we can base a story. We're also looking at people's individual experiences, and actual anecdotes of what might have happened to them, and how they maybe have disclosed, or their encounters that they had with the health sector. And so that's what we did when we were going as a steering group. We went through these ideas, and then we landed on a number of ideas. And then the steering group were very much involved in every stage of the process of the development of the film, through signing off on actors, and through to signing off on the final edit as well. And so there was a number of commonalities that were coming through that initial research with the steering group. and one of them was the encounters with people in the health sector, and how some people have had good experiences, but mostly it was actually not good, the experiences of trying to disclose child sexual abuse in adulthood. And we kind of explored a number of things before we landed on the story that we told. We explored how often child sexual abuse is sometimes, the symptoms of it are sometimes misdiagnosed, and it's put down as a personality disorder when in actual fact it's complex PTSD, which is something that we explored as a potential storyline. And then the other element of it, which I was quite interested in, was this connection with the body, and how we could make a film about kind of reconnecting yourself with your body, which felt like a really fascinating area and something that we could explore. And we talked about potentially, does our main character want to get a tattoo? Because I know tattoos is one way of reconnecting with your body, and so we went down that road as well, but we couldn't really find the story that was going to encompass everything that we wanted to tell within this film. But I think fundamentally what we wanted to tell was the struggle to disclose, the tension of being unable to disclose in adulthood, and also the importance of flow, and hence the title, and how flow kind of gives you that kind of moment of escape, a moment of relaxation. And so you see in the film, there's this tension between the disclosure and also being able to do the artwork, which is something which she feels that gives her flow. And because she's not able to disclose and not able to reconcile this thing that's giving her so much torment, she's unable to do the thing that gives her the most satisfaction, and that is her artwork, which gives her the flow. There's also that notion of family conspiracy, not wanting to tell, and everyone sort of conspiring, perhaps not explicitly, but everyone kind of conspires to the point where Claire doesn't, where the central character doesn't sort of want to say anything. But there was one particular experience which was reflected to me, was about going through your whole teenage years into your mid-20s and fighting something and feeling as though you're being chased by a monster, and not knowing quite what that monster is, and I think the term is dissociative amnesia. This idea that you're suppressing something, that you don't quite remember what it is, but it's this sort of central unease that stays with you, and that's why we depicted being chased through the forest, and that worked on a number of levels. It was a very reflective of a particular experience, but it also worked as a way of reflecting the abuse, but not reflecting it. So in a way that it wasn't sort of explicit, and in a way that it wasn't too traumatic, although I do appreciate that the film, it can be traumatic. And so that was like the kind of the one of the sort of central threads that ran through the story. But ultimately, and this was something that was very much reflected within the steering groups, was the importance of that single compassionate individual, and how often it is a single compassionate individual that a relationship is developed with, and that is the person that you trust and that you feel as though you can disclose, and how through that disclosure it releases our central character, and it releases her and allows her to then go back to her artwork. And Claire and I actually had a bit of a debate about how we ended the film. We did actually film her painting and finishing off that piece of artwork, but and Claire wanted to see her at least painting something. but I think it was, I don't know, my feeling was it was perhaps a bit oversimplistic, and we don't know quite what will happen. I think our hope and our expectation is that everything will be fine, but it's a very complex issue and emotions, and so I'm afraid I had the final say on that. But yeah, so that's hopefully that's given you a bit of insight into how we pulled the story together and made the film.
Thanks, Chris. It's I think it's fascinating that such sensitive research can be made into such a powerful, evocative film, which just works so well in transmitting so many messages. So yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to move swiftly on just because of time. We've got 3 speakers from 3 different organisations now, which is brilliant. So I'm going to move swiftly on to the first and welcome Zoe from the International Centre for Missing and Exploited Children. I think I've got that right. Do correct me if I'm wrong.
Hi, you did get it right. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank
Can
you.
you see my screen and full screen and everything? Great.
Yes, we can see, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So, hi everyone. My name is Zoe Colpart. I'm the Regional Program Manager for Europe at the International Center for Missing and Exploited Children, as very well presented, ICMEC. And I'm going to talk about the importance of raising awareness on child sexual abuse and exploitation, which is what I think the movie is doing. I just first want to give a big thank you to Dr. Cunnington for the invitation, but also for shedding a light on this very important topic, and by extension to Chris as well, and to the Arts for the Future Festival to offer this platform. Before I get into our organization and this, awareness raising part, I want to give an idea of the scope of the issue. I'm only going to focus on the topic of online child sexual abuse, but only just, the online part is already so huge that I think, it can put us into, help us understand a little bit the kind of massive issue that we're talking about in terms of some of the data. Most of what I'm going to go through in this slide is from 2023 data. Obviously, 2024 is well underway, and we tend to see a rise year after year. And the first piece of data I want to talk about is this 36 million reports that were made to NCMEC. NCMEC is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, to their cybertip line, where they receive reports of suspected child sexual abuse material, which are, images or videos representing the sexual abuse of children. Those reports can contain one potential material or many. So when we think about 36 million, this is absolutely massive. Another organization, this time in the UK, the Internet Watch Foundation, is the hotline that is receiving reports in the UK of child sexual abuse material to work to remove them from the internet. In 2023, they removed over 275,000 URLs containing CSAM. Of these images that were appearing on those URLs, 92% were assessed as containing self-generated imagery. Self-generated imagery is when children were coerced or manipulated or groomed into taking photos or videos of themselves in a sexual manner. So this is where the perpetrator doesn't even need to be physically there for the child to have those images and videos created of them. 51% of all action reports and 55% of this category of self-generated child sexual abuse reports showed 7 to 10-year-olds. I insist on this statistic because this tends to, year after year, the majority of images show younger and younger children. There's also a huge rise in cases involving AI-generated CSAM. I think we're all aware of the progress of AI, which can be a good thing, but unfortunately, it's been also abused to represent horrendous scenes of child sexual abuse. NCMEC, so the US organization, received 4,700 reports over 1 year. And in the UK, during only 1 month, the IWF found almost 3,000 images of AI-generated child sexual abuse on just one dark web forum. I'll stop with the terrible data for now. I wanted you to have an image, an idea of the scope again. And now I'll go a little bit more hopeful in the tone, because this is why organization like ours and a lot of organizations that we'll talk today. So I know Smile of the Child is here, our partners in Greece, very, very delighted to share this platform with them as well. This is why we exist. And for us at ICMEC, I think I can say for everybody here, one child missing, abused, or exploited is one too many. So we were founded in 1999. Our headquarters is in the United States, but we have regional representation it's just 10 countries, but we are in quite a few more. In the Americas, Africa, Asia, in Europe. I'm based out of Edinburgh, in Scotland. And we work in more than 120 countries to identify gaps in national and international capacities in the prevention, care, and investigation of sexual abuse and exploitation and missing children. And what we do is that we offer support to governments, decision makers, law enforcement, prosecutors, judges, industry, and civil society to reduce these gaps. Our mission really, and the reason why we go to work every day, is to advance child protection and safeguard vulnerable children by powering the global search for children who are missing, by disrupting the economics and mechanics of commercial child exploitation, and by training frontline professionals to prevent and respond to cases of child abuse and exploitation and children going missing. We do so by working on many different fronts. We first work to recommend new or improved policies and legislation. We also partner with countries to identify and close critical gaps that leave children vulnerable. We also work to create a global workforce of professionals trained in child protection best practices. We also provide hands-on technical support, and we develop technology to aid in effective investigation and prosecution. And finally, we strive to inspire engagement and effective cooperation across industries through coalitions and working groups. I won't go into too much details here, but I'm focusing on Europe in my work. So I wanted to give you a small idea of the kind of work that we do day to day in the region. First, a few projects that we are working in as members, as partners. The HEROES and the ALUNA projects that are funded by the European Commission. And these projects develop technology, research, capacity building, campaigns, and training to better combat human trafficking and child sexual abuse and exploitation crimes. We also conduct multi-sectoral response and capacity assessment. And these research pieces and assessments aim to identify gaps, provide recommendations and a strategic plan, and work with national stakeholders to strengthen the country's response against online child sexual abuse and exploitation. So with these assessments, we aim to basically understand what works and what doesn't, and how we can help so that the country's response against online CSEA is stronger, more robust, and better for victims, survivors, and to prevent also from the crimes from happening. We also conduct national virtual roundtables to help frontline professionals to better prevent, investigate, prosecute, and convict child sexual abuse and exploitation crimes. And we work with national partners to set up rapid emergency child alert systems to disseminate urgent bulletins so that the entire community can assist in the search for and safe recovery of a missing child. So hopefully you have a quick idea, general idea of what ICMEC is. And now I just want to spend the last few slides that I have left, I see the time, on this importance of raising awareness on child sexual abuse, on these crimes, and on what we can do as a community. By starting with this quote. I don't have a reference because I've seen it in so many different places that I think it's just one of those sentences that is just very known. Child sexual abuse is preventable. We say this, we think this, and yet there's so much more that we can do. One of the numbers that I saw out there is that 95% of child sexual abuse is preventable. And that can be done through education. For example, teaching healthy touch, talking about consent and abuse, etc. But this puts a lot of responsibility on the child. And I want to insist a little bit on another piece of material that we created that specifically focuses on the adults that have a duty of care towards that child, because they have a huge responsibility as well in making sure that they have those conversations with children. They make the child aware of things that are okay or that are not, but also that they are there. They show that they are there if there's anything wrong. So this piece of this material that we created as part of the Heroes project that I mentioned earlier is a guide, a simple PDF guide that is also now on an interactive website that aims to ensure online safety and well-being through raising awareness amongst adults. And this guide, as I said, is aimed to support adults to better prevent and respond to online abuse. So again, talking about online abuse specifically, but a lot of the information that is there can be relevant to, offline abuse, basically. At the moment, the guide is available in 4 languages, but it will be translated in 10 very soon. And it aims to empower adults to better protect children and young people online by providing clear, practical advice and strategies for engaging with children on the benefits and risks of being online. Again, as I said, it's really for any adults with a duty of care towards children. And you can see some of the topics on the slide and on the video that are around, the benefits of the internet, starting conversations about online safety, etc., but also how to respond when somebody comes to you with a disclosure. What do you do if a child says, something happened to me? And I think this is a great segue into what Flow is doing, which for me, and please, I'm very open to, discussion about my understanding of the movie. It's very much shedding a light on survivors' path to healing. And I think it's a great movie to represent that helps, having a better idea as to what trauma from sexual abuse that happened in childhood is having on the adult. But it also shows the repercussion of inappropriate response to disclosure from loved ones and from professionals and the care system. But also on the other side, so what is an appropriate response, and how can that response support and help the survivor? And also, I think the movie is so important to simply talk about the topic and encourage people to speak up, which again is really not an easy task to do. But I think the movie is doing this in a very respectful and very honest way. So I just, again, want to thank you, and thank you for the invitation. Looking forward to the other slides. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zoe. I'm going to move swiftly on to our next speaker and welcome PE Protoxaltis from Canada. I know,
very good
sorry,
try. No, that
sorry.
was very good. Very good. I appreciated it. I know how hard it is. That's why I laughed.
I'll mute myself now.
No, that was very good. Let me see if I can share my presentation. 1 second. Let's see if you can see, I suppose, the slides, right?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you very much. It's me, Pihi, and also my colleague Stavroula here today. We're both representing the Smile of a Child, the non-governmental organization in Athens, Greece. There's lots we could say, but we'll try to keep it short and sweet. Just to start by saying that we watched the film in the context of an ISPECAN online event. And when we watched it, some of us were very moved. We liked it a lot. We thought it was all the things that Zoe said, and also hearing Chris and how he made it, all these things. It's subtle, but impactful, moving, and very clear, very discreet, respectful, etc. So I asked Ispikan if we could communicate with Claire and explain to her, and we explained to her that we wanted to make it into Greek with Greek subtitles so we could use it in Greece. So that was the beginning of our relationship. We were very happy that it was possible to do. We've already started using it, and we will use it even more so. So we're very thankful to Claire for giving us opportunity today just to say a few words to all of you about our organization and our work, and also the ways in which we have begun using Flow and how we will use Flow. So the first and most important element about our organization, which is nearly 30 years old, is that it was the idea, the vision of a 10-year-old boy, Andreas Giannopoulos. He was a little boy who got ill with brain cancer. He lost his life. In this year that he spent sick, he thought about kids having different problems, different issues, and he wrote his own vision of an organization in his diary. Here are his own words. We kept them as they were, just translated into English. His vision about a world where all children smile. He named it The Smile of a Child. And the concept was that any child, children with no parents, with toys, with food, that all children deserve to smile, and that it's up to everybody to stop talking and start acting, and that if everyone comes together, they can make sure that children smile. So the Smile of the Child is a Greek organization working in Greece to support and protect children irrespective of where they come from, as long as they're in Greece. And it works very closely with all authorities in Greece, all the relevant ministries, all the relevant public institutions, the police, the armed forces, the law enforcement, universities, municipalities, regional authorities, but also very closely with international partners like ICMEC, that Zoe represented, as well as Ispikan that I mentioned, as well as the NCAC, the National Child Advocacy Center that I saw in the chat is represented here today, and many, many other European and international organizations. Now it works.
Hey, sorry, can I just say,
yes,
the slides haven't moved on if you want to.
They haven't?
No, they're not on a slideshow either. They're just
because they're moving the way I see them. Okay, let me see. That's too bad. Let's see.
That's moved on.
Now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll just show it like this, and it's okay. When I put it in slideshow, you couldn't see it, and I was moving it. So this is Andreas Giannopoulos, the little boy, the founder, and his words in his diary, that all children deserve to smile. This is a slide that shows all our national partnerships with all the bodies, the relevant ministries and bodies. And this is a slide showing our international partnerships, among which is Ispikan, ICMEC, and so on. What I was saying is that the organization works 24/7. That's another very important element, that it's 24/7, all days of the year, free, anonymous, available to any child in danger or in need. And basically, it reaches out to 4 main groups of children. Children victims of any form of violence is the one. The second is missing children. The third is children with health problems. And the fourth is children living in poverty or on the brink of poverty. And for each of these groups, we have many, many actions and services. Over the past year, we developed our services into 10 specialized centers. So one of these centers is focused on abuse and exploitation, and Stavroula, my colleague, coordinates this center. But we also have centers, as you can see, focused on some of the other areas of our work. Now, let me see if I can move this like this. Over nearly 30 years, you can see here the number of children that we have helped here in Greece. So we've helped more than 2 million children and their families. This is in a country that has a population of a little over 10 million. This is over 30 years. And our hotlines and helplines that we will say a few words about afterwards have received more than 4 million calls. As I said, these are 24/7 hotlines and helplines. Let me go to the next one. In 1 year alone, last year, 2023, we received nearly 200,000 calls, and we supported nearly 100,000 children and their families. This is through the different hotlines and helplines that we run. Now, the National Center for Abuse and Exploitation that Stavroula coordinates reflects the different types of actions that we have for children victims of violence. And these actions range from prevention. So we work to prevent this by speaking to the school community, to students, parents, and teachers. We work through our helplines, both to prevent, but also to respond, to counsel, to support. But we also operate homes, care homes, where we raise children victims of abuse and neglect following prosecutor's order. And we also operate a day center that offers therapy to children victims of abuse. So these are just some indications. Our hotlines and helplines are the main tool through which we do a lot of this work. We run 5 different numbers. They all run by the same calling center, 24/7, answered by professional trained psychologists, social workers, to respond to children calling us. These are different numbers that we run. And here's just a snapshot. I'll give the floor there to Stavroula to get into this more, to give a snapshot on our hotlines and helplines, because it's the main tool through which we respond to the children victims of violence. And then Stavroula will also say a few words about how we have made use and will continue to make use of the Flow movie.
Thank you very much, Pili. As Pili has already mentioned, the SMILE offers its services for every child victim of violence 24/7, for families and children victims of violence and abuse. And the SMILE has recently, the latest years, been the center for report for abuse. What we have seen the latest years is that sexual abuse is really underreported. We have too few cases of sexual abuse, and so we run a campaign about this issue that it is called It Stays a Secret, reflecting how difficult it is for children to disclose about the experience of sexual abuse. We're using a lot of technology tools such as chat applications, and we try to give all our means in order to provide adequate support and immediate support that really makes an impact to children's lives. So if we want to move on, Pili, to the use of the movie. Thank you. So we had the opportunity, first of all, to review the translations of the subtitles into Greek from the movie. So in this way, we had a clear insight into the dialogues, which were, first of all, written in a very simple and concrete way, so that the audience could connect to the characters of the film and be guided by vivid storytelling to the main points made by the narration. This made the movie a very impactful tool in order to make the points that someone wants to make about abuse and disclosure. So in the film, we see that the first person that a person that has been abused can disclose to is a health practitioner or a family member. From the organization's experience, health and mental health professionals, peers, family members, and also help and hotlines are offered as a place for disclosure. So we saw the film as a tool to make these places safe for disclosure. What we have started doing is showing the film to our trainees in our helplines. Due to the collaboration we have with universities, we have social workers and psychologists trained in our helplines. So the movie, The Flow, reinforced as they report themselves, the importance of active listening. The students pointed out that the movie helped them understand that even when survivors are hesitant in their disclosure, it is crucial to show empathy and patience so that the caller feels safe to continue opening up. And it's really important because it seems to be a powerful medium to inspire new professionals in the field. So this is the use that we already taken into action, and next year we're planning to use the film in other ways as well, starting with our volunteers. We have training and supervision sessions called Care for Care for volunteers who work with children who have been removed from their homes because of abuse. These children in Greece are temporarily hospitalized for social reasons until a permanent solution is found for them. And while they are in the hospital, our volunteers spend creative time with them. So in our point of view, the film offers clues to understanding the state of mind of an abused child, the importance of activity connecting the mind and the body with flow, such as art, and of course prepares the volunteers to offer a safe response and to work with the organization's professionals in the event of disclosure by the children. Our next stop is going to be parents and teachers in schools, already supported by a team of psychologists who offer awareness and prevention programs on child abuse. And the main aim is to emphasize the importance of a safe response to a child's healing process and the commitment to open communication and a safer environment at school and at home. And finally, our youth team and volunteers and You Smile, which are young people over the age of 18 to 21. They could also be a team of people that could benefit from the film and also provide their valuable insight into the issues addressed in the film. So these are all the groups that we're going to put the next year in the audience to see the film together. We think that the film will highlight the lessons of listening, empathy, and creating safe spaces, and can change the way survivors feel supported and heard. So thank you very much for being a part of this action and for the commitment we all have to supporting survivors of sexual abuse.
Thank you, Stavroula. That was brilliant to hear how widely the film is getting used. It's amazing. And so finally, I'd just like to ask and introduce Tora Edgar from Talk Hong Kong.
It helps if I unmute myself. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes.
Fantastic. And can you see my slides all right?
Yep.
I just wanted to say thanks so much exactly for making the film and highlighting some of the things that I think are really important. I'm the founder of Talk Hong, and we focus on primary prevention, mainly of child sexual abuse. And that includes training for adults. We use the Darkness to Light program, but that's video has come in really handy because called in not for primary prevention, but for case management advice and support from kind of a survivors network point of view, because we are quite far behind the two speakers that we just spoke from. So we have child advocacy or BOHUS structures here, but we will speak to pediatric gynecologists at one of the biggest teaching hospitals here in Hong Kong, because they're really in the front line, but they have very little information about how abuse happens. What's a great way to respond to disclosures, especially when you're in a public hospital setting with very little time. And I gave them as follow-up after presenting some information and talking to them about what survivors would have liked to have seen from the local hospital setting. As kind of a follow-up to the numbers, I think it gives a great, more of an emotional insight as to why it's so hard to disclose. I think probably everyone on this call understands that, but we find in the general population that our conversation about child sexual abuse is so low that people still have quite a hard time understanding why it would be hard to disclose in the first place. I also use the film to kind of represent prevalence in a way, because I often get the response, well, in Hong Kong, we Chinese have a lot of issues around face and we discuss it less. And between the statistics, which I'm going to show you in a second, and international stuff, I think they get the feeling, oh, it is a human problem. It's not a culture problem at all. And it kind of puts people, well, I hesitate to say at ease, but it gives people some insight that they probably wouldn't have otherwise. So we do the training, we do education through the research that we do, and we intend that every program we ever work on is going to be evidence-based, because we're big fans of some people on this call at the CSA Center in the UK. I just really love what you guys do. And we started out as, and still do, support for adult survivors. But some of the stuff we're working on, like I said, the magnitude of child sexual abuse, which was kind of modeled after the CSA Center in the UK's research, with some help from them. We do training on child sexual abuse prevention. This is just the doctors that I mentioned. So somebody from the CSA Center will be familiar with this slide. I'm just saying that in Hong Kong, we have very little research. We only know a couple of key statistics. Departments report based on different categories, different ages. We have a very interesting situation here in Hong Kong that there is no age of a child, technically speaking. So we're quite behind in research. But what we do know, based on the research project that I showed you above from 2022, sorry about that, we estimate 12% of kids in Hong Kong suffer from sexual abuse before they're 18. Although I will bet you if we could get a large-scale qualitative survey going, we would see it's higher. I just saw the recent large-scale survey from Australia, which kind of came out of work from ICMEC, and so thank you, ICMEC, 28.5% of Australians. But this 96% unreported is kind of the germane thing to the topic we're talking about today. So when I show that slide, the conversation comes up, why is it so unreported? Should I believe you that it's so unreported? Why is it so unreported? And Flow, the movie, is just another way to demonstrate why it's so hard. Because as a survivor, I can definitely speak to that. As somebody who's worked with hundreds of survivors, I can speak to that. But it always helps to have another point of view on it, and that's really helpful. The other statistics are probably thing people on this call know. Kids know their abusers. Most of the victims are girls. Most of the perpetrators are men, and increasingly boys. I'm sure you're probably all seeing the same in your jurisdictions. And some data from the Hospital Authority here, which is now quite old, and I see internationally that these numbers are much higher. But for example, we can definitely say to people here, yes, the reason for wanting disclosures to go better is that untreated trauma leads to long-term health effects. Way more likely to attempt suicide, way more likely to have some other physical injury, way more likely to have a mental illness that will impact the hospital authority, the judicial system, and all the rest. Which leads me to our next slide. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody in this call had something to do with a study, which I use all the time, and that's the cost of sexual assault. We would love to do a cost of child sexual abuse in Hong Kong and are looking for funding for that right now. But this is the slide when I show the doctors why they need to pay more attention. This is the slide that makes people sit up in their chairs. And I think it's, again, another way to talk about prevalence. So if the 12% was hard to absorb just on a huge level, somehow this slide gets a lot more reaction and goes right back to the why we need to intervene early and handle disclosures well. That's it. So thank you for your support. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all our speakers. It's been a brilliant session, and we have 2 minutes for questions. So if anyone has any burning questions, please do use the chat or put it on your microphone. Grab these amazing people while we're still here for a couple of minutes. Or put your hand up, whichever you want. We've still got plenty of people in the room. So I just want to say thank you so much for a thought-provoking session, which has been fantastic to have voices from around the world. And I was talking to Claire earlier about her film, and was it 22 different languages? It's been, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Subtitled in 22 languages.
Yeah, which is brilliant. Claire, do you want to add any last sort of concluding thoughts or reflections?
I think it's just really good to hear from people who are doing such good work and, you know, around the world and trying to resolve this. And I think, you know, as Zoe said, we can prevent it. And I think it's just wonderful that, you know, you're doing all this work, and that if the film helps with that at all, then that's just fantastic. And thank you so much for coming. I really, really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I echo that as well. Okay, so I don't think, I'm just checking the chat box.
Yes, I see. I have a comment from NSPCC, Margaret. I didn't see you on the window, but indeed we have used your tools as well. So Smile is always open to identifying new tools to use with the audience it reaches out to. So it's wonderful to have this new tool and all others. And we also thank you all very much for giving us this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just reading the lots of thank you comments in the chat box. So yeah, thank you for people who've come to listen, and thank you for everybody who's contributed today. It's been a brilliant start to a new season of webinars, and this one's going to be hard to beat. So yeah, I shall draw this session to a close. And again, just thank you for all your time.